Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Roadie Storytime. And this one is going to be, I don't know, dude. I really don't know how this is going to go. But you know what? I've got nothing to hide. And I alluded to this in my previous video about working with Van Halen. And honestly, there's probably, some insight and lessons to be learned here. But today I'm going to tell you guys the story about how I got home from tour one time and then got arrested and went to jail. Welcome to everybody on Twitch chat. You're still in timeout, but whatever. People see some of your comments on screen. If you're watching on YouTube later and you'd like to join us on Twitch, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech. We do these story times, we do reactions, we do a lot of stuff. You're more than welcome to join us. But man, to get this one going, I guess this is less of a roadie story time because this actually involves or takes place when I was in an actual band. I hadn't even become a roadie yet, but the consequences from all of this have majorly affected my roadie career up until kind of recently. So yeah, I guess let's tell this story. And if you get anything from it, cool. So back in 2007 or 2008, I can't remember. I think I was 20 at the time. So it was like 2007. I was in a band in Chicago called Inept. Pre-roadie days, of course. I was the bass player and we toured constantly. The five of us in a van and trailer, we were on a lot of national tours as like support bands and stuff like that. And this all took place right when we had gotten home from tour. We had just driven all the way back from like Sacramento, California, back to Chicago. Actually, at the time I was living in Joliet, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. That's like a 36-hour drive that I drove the whole way. And we get back to our place in Joliet and, we get in the house and we're all hanging out. I lived with two of my other band members at the time. At the time we got back, I think it was like 9 o'clock at night or something like that. And we were just kind of tired doing our own thing at the house. And I had decided somewhere around like midnight that it was like midnight, 1 a.m., whatever. I decided that I was very hungry. And there was no food in our house, but about 3/4 of a mile away from our house was a 24/7 White Castle.
I want 30 sliders, 5 French fries, and 4 large cherry Cokes.
I want the same, except make mine Diet Cokes.
So at 1 a.m., I decided I just really wanted White Castle and I was going to walk there. And this was in October in the Midwest region. So it was kind of cold, but it wasn't like super brutal. So I threw on a pair of like Adidas track pants or something and a hoodie. And the hoodie that I was wearing was like bright hunter orange. And this is actually a very important thing you need to know for this story. And I leave my house and I start walking down the street to head to this White Castle. We lived in a little suburb kind of subdivision area. And if you go out to the main road, there's tons of stuff. There's like a Walgreens, a White Castle, a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, all this stuff. And I had our TomTom GPS. Like, if any of you guys were old enough to remember that before we were all using like Waze and Google Maps, I had the TomTom because I wanted to bring it inside the house to charge it. And while I was outside, I had just grabbed it out of my van or our band van while I was out there and I just put it in my pocket. So I'm walking down the street and I get maybe a 1/4 mile away from my house. And as I'm walking down the street, a guy, jumped out from behind a car and like grabbed me by the front of my shirt like this. And in that moment, just spur of the moment, adrenaline, whatever, I thought I was getting like mugged or something. So I just swung as hard as I can and punched the guy in the face and started running. Like I actually didn't even run like back towards my house. I actually ran up the side of the houses that were next to us from the sidewalk and like tried to run around the house and run through backyards to get back to my place just in case this person was like trying to get me or something. And as I'm running, I start seeing flashlights. And like when your adrenaline's going in that moment, you kind of tune everything out. But I start seeing flashlights and I start hearing police, like people yelling police. And I'm just like, oh shit. So like I run between the side of these two houses and I get out into this driveway and I literally see like 7 cops all with flashlights out screaming at me. So I just immediately in the moment just froze in this driveway and just went like this and just didn't know what was going on. And as I had my hands up, didn't see it coming. I know now what happened. A cop ran full speed up to me and literally drop kicked me in the rib cage, like right here. And I remember just feeling like I got hit by a car. I hit the ground, and when I say I got the shit beat out of me, I'm not like over exaggerating that. I got the absolute fuck kicked out of me by like 6 or 7 cops. Like when I hit the ground, even have scars to prove it. Actually, and this is kind of funny that I cut my hair recently. You can see it. See that scar right there on my head? Don't know what it's from, but my only guess is that I either got hit in the side of the head by a pistol or a flashlight. So as I'm getting the shit pounded out of me, kicked in the head, kicked in the stomach, kicked in the back of the ribs, they're trying to handcuff me. And I hear them just screaming, all of them, like, stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting. So I like kind of go limp and let them put my arms by my back. But the second they start doing that, they start fucking kicking me again. So I started covering myself up again. And then again, stop resisting, stop resisting. So finally took the ass kicking and let them handcuff me. And they pull me up, flashlights in my face. They start yelling at me and stuff like this. And once everything gets kind of like calmed down, I'm trying to remember exactly the series of events, because this was fucking, I don't know, what, 15 years ago? No, longer than that, 18 years ago? Kind of don't even want to remember these things. Basically, when everything got calmed down and I was in handcuffs and they had me next to a squad car, they basically told me they're arresting me for burglary and theft. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they emptied out my pockets and they're like, oh yeah, you got a phone and a TomTom, like you're breaking into cars and taking these things. It's like, no, I'm not. Those are ours. And the funniest part about this story is like my band members can like confirm that TomTom was ours. They said that what had happened when they started explaining, the person that I punched that jumped out from behind the car was an off-duty officer that lived in that neighborhood that had heard on the police scanner that there were calls about high school kids breaking into cars in my neighborhood and like stealing iPods and stuff like that out of there. So while they had cops in the neighborhood patrolling, the neighbor that was an off-duty officer took it upon himself to go outside, stake the neighborhood, and had just happened to see me walking down the street, assumed I was the one that was getting calls about me, and tried to apprehend me. So this really is a really bad, like, wrong place at the wrong time kind of thing. But also, when they told me they were charging me with burglary and theft and that I was like breaking into cars, I'm like, look what I'm wearing. I'm wearing a bright orange hoodie. What kind of fucking doorknob of a burglar is gonna break into cars dressed in the brightest clothes possible? Like, and they didn't care. They were just like, whatever. They read me my rights. They put me in the back of the car and they took me to the Joliet police station. And they took my phone and the TomTom and said they were entering into evidence and stuff like that. When they get me into the police station, they sit me down in a chair. And you got to think, at this time, even seeing that scar there, at this time, I had hair down to like here. And the whole right side of my face was like covered in blood and my hair was matted down. I'm pretty sure, I don't know for like, I never got checked out, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure my ribs were cracked from the dude that kicked me because I fucking was hurting so bad. My ankle was sprained from them like stomping on me, like on the ground. And as I'm sitting there handcuffed, like sitting in the police station at this point, it's like 2 a.m. The chief of police comes in and he just stands there and he looks at me and he's like, it's like, how you feel? I was like, how does it look like I feel? And I kid you not, I will never forget this. This is burned in my fucking brain. He looks at me and just goes, I've seen worse. And he just walked away. And I'm just like, what the fuck? They finally bring me into an interrogation room. And I'll tell you this, guys, right now, if you ever get arrested, this is serious life lesson. If you ever get arrested, when they read you your rights and they tell you you have the right to remain silent, anything you say and do can be used against you, they fucking mean it. If you ever get arrested and they try to interrogate you, absolutely say nothing. Demand a lawyer. Don't tell police shit. And that's something I wish I would have known when I was younger. Now, me being a teenager and not knowing any better, and in that mentality of, I just want this. I'm going to comply to show that I have nothing to hide. I just want to, whatever. I go into the interrogation room. I answer every single question. And I realized at one point they were turning all my questions against me. And they definitely played the good cop, bad cop routine. One of the cops was like, hey man, we get it. We get it, dude. Times are tough right now. You need money or something like that. We understand people do things they normally wouldn't. And I was like, no, I wasn't breaking into any cars. And they're like, well, our officer that lives in that neighborhood said he tailed you and watched you opening cars to see if they were unlocked. And I was like, no, it's impossible. They're like, look, like we said, man, people do things when they're struggling. And I was like, I'm not struggling, man. Like, they're like, well, what do you do for a living? I was like, well, I'm in a band. Like saying that out loud now is like, yeah, I could have just said I was struggling. I was like, well, I'm in a band and I work at a venue and stuff like that. And even if I was struggling, like I have parents that would help me out. Like if I ever needed anything. And then the other cop who was playing bad cop was like, oh, you say you're not struggling, but you have to have your parents help you, huh? And I'm just like, it was about that moment right there where I realized that like, even though I knew nothing about the law, all I know is the things I've seen in movies and TV that they were doing the good cop, bad cop thing. I immediately shut down and I was like, I am fucking done with you guys. I want a lawyer. And they were just like, okay, go, we're taking you back. So they sit me outside and I had to have been sitting in the station for like another fucking hour, just sitting there doing nothing. Phantom Messengers sitting there covered in blood, no medical. Yeah, just sitting there. Like, yeah, dude, they were treating me like a criminal, man. They didn't care. They weren't gonna help me out. So I'm sitting there and finally I look at the person at the desk and I was like, can I get a phone call? I didn't even know if that was gonna work. I just remember seeing that on TV and shit. I was like, I want my phone call. Like, and they just looked at me and they're like, you're getting booked on felony charges, dude. You're going to county. You're not getting a phone call. And I was just like, what? They were going to charge me with felony burglary and theft of everything that they like, as if they caught the person who was actually breaking into cars. And then they also added resisting arrest and assault of an officer onto those charges as well. So after, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they're processing my stuff, whatever. They were like, okay, let's go. And I was like, go where? And they're like, county. So this is about 4 a.m. at this point. They pick me up out of the chair. They throw me into the back of a squad car. I will say my favorite thing about this story, dude, I'm so proud of this. They put me in the back of a squad car and they take me from the Joliet police station to Will County Jail, which Will County is the county outside of Chicago. It's considered like the second worst prison area other than Cook County in Chicago. While we were on the drive, which was only like 10 minutes or something, I had to fart so bad and I ripped the most horrendous fart in this cop's car to even when we got to the jail and he took me out, I kid you not, he fucking took me out of the car and he looked in the back seat to make sure that I didn't like shit in his car. It was that awesome. So that was like my one shining moment of this whole fucking story. Anyways, they take me into county and I get, dude, like mugshot, fingerprints, all that shit. They put me in a holding cell, like an actual holding cell with other people. There's like 5 of us in there. It's a tiny cell. There's just a bench and a toilet. And finally, like I started talking to some of the guys in there and I'm like, do we get a phone call or whatever? And one of the guys just like, just ask. I was like, okay. So I go up to by the door of the cell and I asked for an officer and I was like, can I get a phone call? And they're like, oh, our phone system is down right now. So there's no outgoing calls. And this was like 8 a.m. or something. And I'm just like, okay. They're like, we'll let you know when our phone system's back up and working. Like the phones are out in the entire area. Like landlines are down. And I'm just like, okay. Now the crazy thing about this story that you need to know too, is that night, my band was actually supposed to leave to drive to Louisville, Kentucky to do a show. So at this point at 8 a.m, to my band members' knowledge, probably, I'm in my room sleeping and nothing's wrong. But I'm at the county jail. So they have no idea what's happened. And we're supposed to do a show the next day. Long story short, I sat in that cell for maybe 8 more hours. I sat in there for 8 hours without being told anything from anybody. Finally, the officer comes by and goes, hey, the phones are back up. Go for it. Because there was a phone in there, like at the end of the cell. He's like, the phone's back up. And I saw some people saying like they were lying. I definitely tried to use the phone at some point. It was just not working. Whether they were down or they can turn them off, I don't know. Like, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying, like, the phone literally wasn't working while I was in there up until that point. Oh, how hungry was I by then? I can't remember, to be honest. I really don't. I think I was too terrified to care. Again, I was just like a fucking teenager, dude, and I was sitting in a county jail. So at 4 p.m., they go, phones are working, go for it. I go to the phone and I call my dad. Just first phone call I would have made, my dad. Because my dad and I are very close. And when you call from a jail, whoever answers, it says like, you have a collect phone call from blah, 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 penitentiary or jail or whatever. So my dad picks up his phone at home and probably just hears that recording. Like, you have a collect call from Will County Correctional Institute. And he's like, your call is from, and it's probably my recording, just Ian. And my dad literally answers the phone and he goes, what the fuck is going on? And I told my dad everything that happened. And he's like, listen, dude, I will always help you out. I want you to be honest with me right now. Did you do any of the stuff they're charging you with? I was like, I assaulted the officer and I guess I resisted arrest. He's like, all right. He's like, we'll get you out of there. He's like, what's your bail? I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, what did the judge tell you? It's like, I haven't seen a judge. And he's like, oh, fuck. Are you kidding me? And he goes, dude, it's Friday. It's 4 p.m. They do the court sessions in the morning on weekdays only. You're going to be put into Gen Pop for a weekend. I was like, no way. There's no way they're going to throw me, like a kid, into general population. And he goes, yes, they will. You're over 18, dude. Like, he goes, they don't do court on weekends. Like, you're just going to have to go in there for a weekend, dude, until Monday. He goes, I don't want to terrify you or anything, but like, you're just going to have to lay low and kind of fend for yourself for a weekend. He goes, so we'll find you a lawyer, which they did. He's like, we'll find you a good lawyer in Joliet and we'll get you out of there, but it's not going to be till Monday. So I didn't believe it, but I kid you not, the second I hung up the phone, like a correctional officer came by and was like, Roberts, what size shoe do you wear? Sorry, Naked Chat just said, what's general publication or whatever you just said? Oh, general population. That's like Gen Pop. Like, that's the jail, not a holding cell. They're going to process me in and put me in with the other inmates. That's general population. So they asked me what size shoe I wear and stuff like that. And they come to the cell and they pop it, the holding cell, they pop it open and they give me a stack of shit. It's literally jumpsuit. Well, it wasn't like a suit. It was pants and a shirt pullover. I think the color was like tan or some shit. Shoes. A little, I think it was like a little toiletry bag that just had like toothbrush and a toothpaste and a bar of soap or some shit. And they're like, yeah, come with us for processing. Yeah, they make you fucking strip down in front of a guard, fucking shower off and clean up, get fucking searched.
Did you give him a full cavity search? You can never be too careful, Bork.
It's fucking very dehumanizing. It's very demoralizing. Everything you had on you, your clothes, jewelry, whatever, they take from you. They fucking put in a bag and then you change into the shit they gave you. And that's it. They handed me a blanket and a pillow and they escorted me through the halls to general population and they brought me into the cell block. And the cell block that I was in, it was like shaped like a huge octagon, really big. And at the front, there was like the guard station. In the middle were some tables and chairs. And I think they had some like books on some carts and stuff. And there was 2 levels. There were cells downstairs and cells upstairs. And I'll never forget how terrified I was because they took me to the guard station or the guard post and they, called out what cell to pop or whatever. They're like, Robert, cell, whatever. And some dude on the upper tier, when they called the cell number, he's like, man, you better watch out. That's a fucking killer in there. And I'm just like, what the fuck? I think he was probably fucking with me at the time, but either way, I get into the cell and the dude that's already in there, I kid you not, he looked like he could have been Aaron Lewis's twin, Aaron Lewis from Stained. Like literally looked like a spitting image of the guy. And he's just sitting on his bed, not doing anything, just like sitting there. And when I come in, he's just like staring at me, like blank dead stare, just like. And I was like, can I take this bed here? And he's just like, yup. And I put the stuff down and I kind of just sit there and he's just staring at me, sizing me up still. And he finally, he's like, I think he finally started, he goes, how old are you, man? And I told him I was like 19 or 20 or whatever I was at the time. And he's like, what you in for? And I kind of told him a short condensed version of what I just told you guys. But when I told him I was getting, charged with like punching a cop and shit like that, he's like, He's like, yeah, fuck that, man. He's like, fuck them. He was like, after hearing my story, he was like very cool. And he's like, yo, just know, man, while you're in here, he's like, you're probably going to get out on Monday. Like your bail's probably gonna be cheap. Like, he's like, I got your back while you're in here. He's like, this cell block ain't bad. And come to find out that this guy was actually very involved with like local gangs and shit. And he'd been in and out of jail since he was like 18 and he was probably in his 30s at the time. And he was like, the cell block you're in ain't bad. He's like, but there are some shady people in here and stuff like that. But he's like, just chill in here or whatever. You're fine. Was I still covered in blood at this point? No, because remember I had to strip down and shower in front of a correctional officer before I got put in general population. So the first roll call we had, because every 8 hours when they do shift change, everybody has to come out. They pop the cells and everybody has to come out for head count. First time we did that, he had to have been somebody with a reputation in that jail, because the first time we stepped out there, like before they even started doing call, he goes, yo, man, this kid's cool. Nobody mess with him. And everybody was just like, all right. So like the whole time I was there, honestly, wasn't like, it was more boring than anything. I sat in my cell for fucking 48 hours or some shit. I think I read the prisoner's rights handbook like fucking 10 times because I was just bored and there was nothing to do. Dude, I couldn't imagine being in a county jail like that for fucking a long amount of time. I'd go crazy, dude. Like, from what I understand, actual prisons have more shit for you to do and you get out time and stuff, but a county jail, I'm pretty sure in the prisoner's rights handbook, it said every prisoner in a county jail is allotted so much time out of their cell every day. We never got that. The only time they ever offered us to leave our cell was to like shower, which I did not do. I'm not kidding. I was kind of terrified. When they popped the cells for people to go shower instead, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to stay right in my fucking cell. So finally, Monday morning rolls around. They pull me out for virtual court, which I got to admit was one of the most embarrassing, demoralizing moments of my life. Having to do like virtual court where I just had to sit in front of a camera like this. And I had a screen in front of me so I could see what was going on. And it was like the actual courtroom, the judge, and seeing my parents in there, and when they're like calling my name and reading off my charges, like it's fucking embarrassing, dude. Like, kind of getting emotional thinking about that situation again now, because like just seeing them in the courtroom when they're charging me with all this shit and stuff, I was like, fucking, I can't remember what my bail was. I think it was like $20,000. But if anybody doesn't know, to post bail, you only have to pay 10% of that. So it was $2,000. So my parents paid $2,000 to bail me out of jail. And it took like 12 hours for them to fucking process me. So like, even after they posted my bail, it wasn't until like 8 p.m. that night that I actually got out. I remember we went to Buffalo Wild Wings afterwards. I don't know how, I mean, there's those moments that like, those small details you probably never remember fucking anything about, but I remember a lot of this because it was such a fucking impactful thing. Yeah, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings after, and I got fucking honey barbecue boneless wings. Oh, and I forgot, the whole time this was going on, like when I finally got my phone call to my dad, he had called my band members and told them what was going on. And my band, this was probably really stupid that they did this, but this was back in the MySpace days. They changed our profile picture on MySpace, and it was a picture of me. It was like our professional band picture. It was a picture of me. They had photoshopped bars over it, and under it put like Ian Roberts is innocent or some shit. And I'm just like, we could have not told anybody about any of this. Like, but they canceled the show. They didn't do the show with me. But finally I get back to my house, and my guitar player is home, and he's just like, what the fuck happened, dude? Kind of told him the whole story of what was going on. And he goes, great. So you got arrested, and now we don't have a TomTom. Because the TomTom had to be put in evidence. Yeah, the next morning after that, my dad had found me a lawyer that I had to go meet with, and met up with him and told him everything that happened. And he's like, so he goes, we'll get the resisting arrest charge removed immediately, because he's like, they always throw those on just cause, like, they always. He's like, the burglary and theft that they're charging you with, he goes, they have sworn police reports from all those cops that all said they saw you breaking into cars. And I'm just like, I freaked out. I was like, there's no way. And he's like, well, he goes, that's what they're saying. And the way he said that's what they're saying to me meant like, it was kind of a wink and a nod, like, yeah, of course. Like they're going to say what they need to say. He goes, the assaulting an officer, I can probably also get removed, because like if he didn't announce himself and wasn't in uniform, then you didn't know it was self-defense. He goes, but we're going to have to fight this in court. And I will probably make a strong argument for excessive use of force as well. He goes, we can probably go after the police department for it, but they could counter that by saying like you assaulted an off-duty officer. So anyways, we talk about all this shit for a while, and then I had to go into court, and then nothing got settled in that first court date. And then here's where I fucked up. Here's where if I'd been older and wiser, I would have done things differently. At the time, my band had just got signed in Japan. We were having label attention in the US. And I was so worried about missing tour dates because my lawyer said that the court is going to take probably a while. I was so worried about losing my spot in my band that I just wanted to get this completely wrapped up and done. I just wanted this done. I went in and told my lawyer that, and he goes, I would highly advise you not to do this. But I just told him, I don't care. I want it done. I want this stuff done, off my record, just completely wiped out. And he's like, I'll see what I can do. So we go into court, and he talks to the, local prosecutors and stuff. And he comes out and he goes, you plead guilty. You get 3 years of probation. If you do 3 years of probation clean, they'll vacate your record. And then after a couple years after that, you can get your whole entire record expunged. But they'll give you credit for time served. And this is done right now. This is the last court date we have to do. And I was just like, yeah, let's do it. So I went in there and I pled guilty to everything in exchange for 3 years of probation. Just to have it done with. Looking back on it now, I probably wouldn't have done that. But you can't help that now. And I have no regrets in my life because I'm at exactly where I am right now because of the choices that I've made before. So yeah, I get assigned probation. I go meet my probation officer, and luckily I lucked out big time. My probation officer was actually very cool with me. First day he sits me down and he goes, do you do drugs? It's like, no. So if we do piss test right now, you'll be clean. I was like, yeah, promise. And he's like, all right, let me be brutally honest with you. I have a ton on my plate and a lot of cases. And from your record and your background, I got a lot more people to worry about than a white kid from the suburbs. So he's like, so if you test clean right now and you keep in touch with me, we're not going to have to come do home visits or anything like that. I explained to him my touring situation. He goes, I will sign off on you leaving the state. Cause if you're convicted of a felony, like you can't leave the state. He goes, promise me you're not going to get in trouble. You're never going to drug test positive, and we're good. And I was like, cool. So I went in, did a drug test, came up fine. I think he came and did a home visit once to check out where I was staying and what I was doing. And our deal was basically, you come in every time you get home from tour, tell me what's been going on, do a quick drug test, and we're solid. And I was like, okay. And that's how it went for 3 years. And the crazy thing is at one point I quit my band. Like, you guys know that story. Like, I quit my band and became a roadie while I was still on probation. So like, I had to explain to Red, the first band I ever worked for, like they knew when they hired me that I was on probation and that I was technically a convicted felon. That's not trying to throw shade at them by any means. That's showing they gave me a huge chance there. So I finished probation. And here's the thing where I kind of messed up, and this goes into the Van Halen story. I finished my probation, no problems, no nothing. Guys, since this has happened, I haven't even been pulled over driving. I have no record. Like, I've never even gotten a ticket. So I'm a pretty clean dude. After I finished probation, I didn't actually know that I had to go back into court to get the vacation and expungement process started. I thought I was just good. I thought 3 years of probation, boom, it's in the system, you're done, you're good. So that brings up the Van Halen story we talked about where I hit a border with no paperwork. I didn't know that when I finished probation, I had to have my lawyer file a motion in court to have my record vacated and my record closed. So after that Van Halen tour, I went to my lawyer and he's like, oh yeah, like we got to get this worked out. So he went into court on my behalf. I didn't have to go, and filed the paperwork to get everything vacated. So later, a couple years later, I was up for like expungement. So I had to do the whole process again. Now here's where this worked out really good. My lawyer at the time is actually a judge in that county now. So I called his office to get my expungement paperwork started. And they're like, oh yeah, he's no longer here because he is a judge now. So let me connect you with one of his colleagues. Now my record is completely clean. I have no problems getting into any countries. But yeah, for a few years, I did have to carry that paperwork on me. And every time I crossed a border, like Canada, Australia, like Australia is pretty strict too. It was a guarantee that I was getting pulled off the bus. Like if we got to the Canadian border and they ran everybody's passports inside, you'd get an agent knocking on the door and they'd get on the bus and be like, can we get Roberts off the bus, please? And I'd have to go inside and like show him my paperwork and explain the situation. And yeah, but now I'm good. Now my whole record is completely clean and good and I'm good to go. But like, yeah, dude, it's crazy. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to tell the story, but it is a big part of my story, especially like, you know, keep in mind, I've had to tell every band I've ever worked for about this stuff just to be open and honest and just, you know, because it would be weird if I started working for a band and I got pulled off the bus and they didn't know what was going on, even though, yeah, all because I wanted some White Castle at 1 a.m. Yeah, it's literally, if I would have just stayed my ass at home and ate some ramen or something, I'd be fine. I should get a sponsorship from White Castle at this point or something. Hollandvara says it tells more about American police court system than me. I mean, yeah, I will say I learned more about the police and justice system from that whole situation than I would have if it never happened. It's crazy, dude. It's the system is crazy. It really is. And let's be 100% honest here. Had this situation happen where I assaulted an officer and then ran and stuff like that, could you imagine if I wasn't white? Honestly, it might have ended a lot differently. Let's be 100% honest here. But yeah, that's really it. That's the story of me getting arrested and having to deal with that. But seriously, to everybody that's live on Twitch chat, thank you for being very cool during this one and not getting out of hand or anything. Like I said, I'm not trying to push any narratives or anything like that. I just wanted to tell you my story and you can make up your own mind about that experience with the U.S. justice system and police and all that stuff. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. So to everybody on Twitch, thank you again. If you're watching on YouTube later, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech, where we talk about stories and reactions and all that other good stuff. But I'm also on a ton of different social media. @TankTheTech is my handle on just about everything. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, be safe, be kind to each other. I love you all, and I will see you very soon.